It started with a shudder, then another. Seconds later, two earthquakes. Same place, same minute. Across Japan, lights went dark. Sirens screamed into the night. People ran into the streets. Buildings swayed like trees in wind. And deep underground, something impossible happened. The shaking came from nowhere, not from any fault line scientists knew about, not from any crack in the earth they had mapped. It came from the dark. Japan knows earthquakes. The country shakes all the time. Small ones, big ones, they build for it. They train for it. Every child learns to duck under desks when the ground moves, but this was different. Scientists stared at their screens. The data made no sense. Two massive waves of energy, both huge, both powerful, both hitting within 60 seconds of each other. That should not happen. One seismologist whispered to another, "How is this possible?" The waves did not match known faults. They did not follow the patterns. They came from somewhere new, somewhere hidden. And then the satellites saw it. Japan had moved. Not a little, not a crack or a shift you could ignore. The entire country had tilted, almost 10 centimeters, 4 inches, in one night. Mountains shifted, coastlines bent, cities drifted like boats on water. Something enormous had woken up beneath the island. Scientists rushed to check their instruments. Was this real? Could the data be wrong? But every machine said the same thing. Every satellite, every sensor buried deep in rock. Japan had changed shape. The ground people walk on every day. The roads, the train tracks, the foundations of homes, all of it had moved, and no one knew why. For the first time in decades, experts felt afraid, not of the earthquake itself. They had seen big quakes before. They knew how to respond. No, they were afraid because they did not understand. How could a fault this powerful go unseen? How could it hide under one of the most studied countries on Earth? Japan has more earthquake sensors than almost anywhere, thousands of them, listening, measuring, watching the Earth breathe. And yet this fault had stayed silent, invisible, waiting, until now. In the hours after the quakes, newsrooms exploded with questions. What hit us? Where did it come from? Is it over? Scientists could not answer. Not yet. They only knew one thing. The shaking had revealed something terrible. A crack in the earth no one had seen. A wound that stretched for miles, maybe hundreds of miles. And it was still moving. Deep below Japan in the hot, dark crust, something had broken. Something ancient. Something that had been holding still for thousands of years. Now it was awake. Geologists grabbed their gear. They packed into trucks and helicopters. They flew over towns and cities looking for signs, cracks in roads, shifts in fields, anything that would show where the rupture went. And what they found changed everything. The fault did not follow the map. It cut across old lines. It ignored the zones they thought were safe. It had its own path, its own rules. One scientist held up a GPS tracker. The numbers kept changing even now, even after the shaking stopped. The ground was still drifting. Japan was still moving. Somewhere deep below, the fault was slipping, inch by inch. Too slow to feel, but constant, unstoppable. And if it slipped too far, if it broke again, no one wanted to say it out loud, but everyone was thinking the same thing. This could happen again. Bigger, stronger, worse. The twin quakes were not the disaster. They were the warning. Across the country, people began to ask a new question. A terrifying question. If this fault moves again, could it break Japan in half? Scientists moved fast. Within days, teams spread across central Japan. They hiked through rice fields. They walked along highways. They studied every crack, every broken piece of road. In the quiet town of Toyama, geologists found something strange. Cracks in the ground, long ones, running in directions that made no sense. They did not follow the known fault lines. They crossed them. Like wires tangled together, one geologist knelt down. She touched the edge of a fissure. It was fresh, sharp. The earth had torn open just days before. But why here? This area was supposed to be stable. She looked at her map, then at the crack, then back at the map. The map was wrong. Back in the lab, scientists studied the data. They built models of the earth below Japan, slices of rock and crust, layers going down miles and miles. Normally, this part of Japan looked solid, strong, safe. But now the models showed something new, a rupture zone, a place where the crust had split, a wound running deep into the earth. One scientist described it like this: "It is like finding a hidden artery under your skin and realizing it is bleeding." They gave it a name: the silent rupture, a blind fault, invisible until it moved, hidden under towns and cities and farms, waiting. For decades, people had lived on top of it, built homes, raised families, never knowing what lay beneath. Now it had spoken. The satellites kept watching. They sent back new images every few hours, and every time the story got worse. The rupture stretched for 200 kilometers, over 100 miles, cutting through central Honshu like a hidden scar. And it was not done. Small tremors began appearing, tiny earthquakes, most too small to feel. But the sensors caught them. They followed a line, north to south, a trail of shaking that lined up perfectly with the new fault. The silent rupture was still shifting. Scientists plotted the tremors on a map. The pattern made their blood run cold. The line pointed toward Tokyo. Not directly, not yet, but close enough to worry. Tokyo is home to 30 million people. It is one of the biggest cities on Earth, and it sits on a web of faults, old ones, dangerous ones. If the silent rupture connects to those faults, if it triggers them, the damage could be unimaginable. One researcher stayed up all night watching the data stream in. Every new tremor, every tiny shift in the crust. He did not go home. He could not, because the Earth was still talking, and what it said was terrifying. The silent rupture was not just a crack, it was a system, a network of breaks and fractures deep underground, and systems can spread. In meeting rooms across Japan, scientists argued. Some said to wait, let the shaking settle, study it slowly. Others said no. Sound the alarm now. Update the hazard maps, warn the cities in the fault's path. But warning people is hard when you do not understand the danger yourself. How big is this fault? How deep does it go? Will it break again? No one knew. Meanwhile, satellites kept revealing more. The ground displacement was spreading, not just along the original line, but sideways too, east toward the coast. Japan was not just shaking, it was bending, flexing like a living thing. One geologist put it simply: the Earth under Japan is rewiring itself. We are watching it happen in real time, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. In Toyama, the town where the first cracks appeared, families came home. They looked at the fissures in their yards, the broken walls, the shifted foundations. They swept up the glass. They patched the cracks. But at night, they lay awake, listening, waiting for the ground to move again. Because deep below, the silent rupture still hummed, still shifted, still bled energy into the crust. The shaking had stopped, but the danger had not. It was just getting started. For over 100 years, Japan has mapped its earthquakes. Every fault, every danger zone, every place the ground might break. They built their cities around those maps, their bridges, their power plants, their homes. The maps were supposed to keep people safe, but the silent rupture was not on the map. Scientists pulled out old seismic charts, papers from the 1950s, studies from the 80s, modern digital models from just last year. They laid them side by side. Nowhere, not one map showed a fault where the rupture happened. For decades, experts had looked at this region and called it stable, low risk, safe. They were wrong, and now they had to ask a harder question. What else did they miss? Inside the Japan Meteorological Agency, data analysts worked around the clock. They re-examined every sensor reading, every historical quake, every tiny tremor from the past 50 years. Patterns started to emerge, small earthquakes, ones that seemed random at the time, scattered across central Japan with no clear cause. But when you connected them, when you drew a line through them, they followed the silent rupture perfectly. The fault had been active all along, shifting, slipping, just too slowly to notice, until it was not. One scientist said it out loud: "This is not a new fault. It is an old one waking up." That made it worse. A new fault, you can study, you can watch it form, learn its behavior. But an ancient fault? One that has been quiet for centuries? You have no idea what it will do next. Debates broke out, meetings turned into arguments. Should they update the hazard maps now, tell the public the truth, or wait until they understood more? The government held a press conference. An official stood at a podium. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Is the danger over? Are we safe? The official spoke carefully. There is no immediate cause for alarm. We are monitoring the situation closely, but behind closed doors, it was different. A leaked memo spread through the science community. Satellite deformation suggests multi-segment rupture extending beyond model limits. Translation? The fault is bigger than we thought, and we do not know where it ends. Japan's entire safety model was built on certainty, on knowing where the danger zones were, on being prepared. But the silent rupture shattered that certainty. If a fault this big could hide, what else was hiding? Scientists went back to the satellites. They ordered new passes, higher resolution, more detail. What they saw made them sick. The land displacement was still spreading, not just north and south, but east too. Toward the coast, Japan was not just tilting, it was stretching like something pulling it apart from below. One researcher zoomed in on a section near the Sea of Japan. Offshore, under the water, small tremors dotted the ocean floor. Dozens of them, all new. The fault was extending into the sea, and that meant one thing: tsunami risk. If the fault slipped underwater, it could displace millions of tons of water, send waves crashing into coastal towns, just like 2011. The memory of that disaster was still fresh. Entire villages swept away, thousands dead, a nuclear plant melting down. Japan had rebuilt, recovered, promised it would never happen again. But now the Earth was threatening to do it all over. Maps were redrawn, hazard zones expanded, evacuation routes updated, but the truth was simple. No one really knew where the danger was anymore. The ground beneath Japan, once thought stable and understood, had become a mystery. And mysteries are dangerous when 30 million people live on top of them. In towns across central Honshu, people watched the news. They saw the scientists argue, the officials hesitate, the maps change, and they felt something they had not felt in years. Helplessness. You can prepare for earthquakes you know are coming. You can build stronger, train harder, store supplies. But how do you prepare for a fault no one saw? For danger that was not on the map? The answer was simple. You could not. All you could do was wait and hope the ground stayed still. But hope is not a plan, and the silent rupture was not done. Scientists kept digging, not into the ground, into data. They used a tool called seismic tomography. It is like an X-ray for the Earth. It shows what is deep below, the shape of the crust, the flow of hot rock, the hidden faults. What they found changed everything. The silent rupture was not alone. Deep below Japan, 3 fault segments sat close together, connected, like gears in a machine. When one moved, the others felt it. Scientists call this a sympathetic rupture system. One fault breaks, the stress shifts, the next fault feels the pressure, and then it breaks too, like dominoes falling, but made of rock, and each one capable of destroying cities. This explained the twin quakes, 2 faults, 1 trigger, both snapping within seconds of each other. But it raised a worse question. Are there more? Researchers started looking at history. Old earthquakes, big ones, the kind that killed thousands. 1891, the Mino-Owari earthquake, one of the deadliest in Japan's history. It hit central Honshu. 1948, the Fukui earthquake, same region, thousands dead. 2011, Tohoku, the big one, the one everyone remembers, the tsunami, the nuclear disaster. All of them followed a pattern, a line running through central Japan, north to south. Scientists had always thought these were separate events, different faults, bad luck. But now, they saw the truth. The quakes were connected, all part of the same system, the same hidden network of cracks deep in the crust. The silent rupture was not the start. It was the latest link in a chain that stretched back over a century, and the chain was still active. One seismologist put it simply, "We are watching the Earth's circuitry overload. Every major quake added stress to the system, shifted pressure from one fault to another, like squeezing a balloon. Push in one place, it bulges somewhere else. And right now, the balloon was close to popping. Real-time data showed tremors spreading, not just along the silent rupture, but branching off, following old fault lines, lighting up zones that had been quiet for decades. The map of Japan looked like a circuit board flickering to life, little red dots appearing, multiplying, spreading. Each dot was a tremor. Each tremor was a warning. The fault network was waking up. And the worst part? Some of the tremors were offshore, under the Sea of Japan, where water meets crust, where earthquakes turn into tsunamis. Scientists tracked the offshore quakes carefully. Most were small. Magnitude 3, magnitude 4, not dangerous on their own, but they were clustering, forming a line, following the fault as it extended into the ocean. If that fault slipped big, if it broke underwater, it would lift the seafloor, displace billions of gallons of water, send waves racing toward shore. Coastal towns started running drills, testing sirens, reviewing evacuation plans. But plans only work if you have time. Tsunamis move fast, faster than people can run. In 2011, some waves hit in less than 30 minutes. People barely made it to high ground. Now, with a fault they did not fully understand, they might have even less time. One mayor of a coastal town spoke to reporters. "We rebuilt after the last tsunami. We raised the seawalls. We thought we were ready." He paused, looked out at the ocean. But how do you prepare for something you cannot predict? Back in the labs, scientists kept modeling, kept running simulations, trying to predict what would happen if the fault broke again. The results were grim. A magnitude 7 quake on the silent rupture could trigger sympathetic ruptures in 2 other faults. The combined shaking would be felt across half of Japan. A magnitude 8? That could shift the entire tectonic structure of central Honshu, alter coastlines, sink islands, reshape the country, and the stress data suggested it was possible. The fault had not released all its energy. It was still loaded, still tense, still ready to break. Every tremor now carried weight. Every shake was studied, analyzed, feared. Is this the next one? Is this the big one? Scientists could not say. The Earth does not give warnings. It does not announce its plans, it just moves. And when it does, all anyone can do is hold on. The silent rupture had revealed a terrifying truth. Japan was not built on solid ground. It was built on a web of hidden faults, a network of cracks, a system under pressure, and that system was reaching its breaking point. Weeks passed. The ground still trembled, not big shakes, small ones, but constant. A reminder that the Earth was still awake. GPS towers across Japan recorded tiny movements, millimeters at a time, slow drifting, the crust still adjusting, still settling into its new shape. Japan's geospatial agency released a statement. The silent rupture runs beneath 3 prefectures. It is still active. Movement continues. People learn to live with uncertainty. They went to work, sent kids to school, cooked dinner, did laundry, but they kept emergency bags by the door, charged their phones every night, listened for sirens. The earthquake had not just shaken buildings, it had shaken trust in the maps, in the science, in the idea that humans could predict and control nature. Scientists kept working, studying the data, refining their models, trying to understand what they had missed, but they also admitted something important. They did not have all the answers, and maybe they never would. The silent rupture forced a hard truth into the open. Even the most mapped, most studied, most prepared country on Earth could be surprised, because the Earth is old and complex and full of secrets. Humans have been measuring earthquakes for barely 200 years, recording them carefully for maybe a century, but the Earth has been shifting for 4 billion years. We are watching a story that started long before us and will continue long after. One geologist said it best: we measure, we map, we build. But beneath us, the Earth has its own design. That design does not care about cities, or borders, or human plans. It moves on its own time, follows its own rules, and sometimes it reminds us how small we are. The silent rupture also raised questions beyond Japan. If a hidden fault could exist under one of the most studied places on Earth, what about everywhere else? What faults are hiding under California, under New Zealand, under Istanbul or Tehran? How many silent ruptures are waiting, holding still, watching, ready to wake? Scientists around the world started reviewing their own maps, looking for gaps, for patterns they might have missed. The lesson from Japan spread. Certainty is dangerous. Humility is smarter. We do not know everything. We cannot predict everything. And the Earth will always surprise us. In Japan, reconstruction continued. Roads were repaired, buildings inspected, cracks filled. Life went on. But something had changed. People looked at the ground differently now. It was not just dirt and rock. It was alive, moving, breathing. The earth beneath their feet had become something to respect and fear and wonder at. On quiet nights in towns across central Honshu, people could feel it, a faint hum, almost too soft to notice, the vibration of the planet, the slow grinding of tectonic plates, the pulse of the world below. It had always been there, but now they heard it. Scientists continued monitoring, the sensors kept recording, the satellites kept watching. Because the silent rupture did not end when the shaking stopped, it began. The fault is still there, still shifting, still holding energy. It might stay quiet for years, or decades, or centuries, or it might break again tomorrow. No one knows. And that is the point. The Earth does not give us certainty. It gives us reminders. Reminders that we are not in control, that the ground we stand on is not still. It is breathing. That the world is bigger and older and stranger than we can fully understand. Japan will keep preparing, keep building, keep measuring. But now, they do it with open eyes, with humility, with the knowledge that nature always holds surprises. The silent rupture taught them that, and it taught the rest of us too. We live on a restless planet, a world of hidden faults and secret forces, of slow movements and sudden breaks. A world that does not wait for permission to change. The tremors may fade, the data may settle, the sirens may go quiet, but the silence beneath Japan still hums, and it always will.